have so much fun planned for you tonight.
All right, we're on Play It Forward today. We got Geena Hernandez. She is the writer director of Chicks. Geena, thank you for being on the show today. All right,
Hi, I'm really excited to be here.
thank you.
My name is Tina.
Go. It's on you.
Awesome. Sorry about that. My name is Gina. So yeah, I'm the writer director for Chicks. And yeah, I've been ever since a kid, always wanted to like work in something creative and be able to tell stories. And so I always would fill up like journals completely filled with drawings and stories. And so now like learning that you can make films has honestly been so cool to be able to go down that route and meet other like filmmakers that are also as passionate about making, telling stories or creating, just a cool audio visual, combination that's so cool to me, just how much goes into all the elements of filmmaking. Um, really like all the different hats that you need to wear, the different like sort of parts of your brain that, just like there's so much like there's like handiness, there's craftiness, there's like storytelling, there's just so much to it, up to the puzzle of making movies that I think is so exciting. And yeah, so I had created my short film Chicks was right after I had graduated from college into the pandemic. And so it was very much in 2020. I was really wanting to write something that was like a theater movie, like an audience engaged, like what's going to happen next. I didn't think it was going to go that way. I really just wanted to write something that was like, you wouldn't know which way it would go next. And I was always been inspired by movies and TV that I've seen where it's like, I didn't even know you could do that. And so that's always something I've wanted to strive for. I could only hope the highest ultimate dream as a filmmaker would be to like make something like that others could think that as well too, because I'm so inspired by like, you know, other filmmakers like that have definitely, especially with like genre defying or genre pushing work. I really enjoy like, just like playing with the limits and boundaries of genre because I think it's such a fascinating concept. Like all these tropes together will make this movie. You think it's going to go this way because we've seen this trope so many times, but that was a big inspiration for Chicks of like, okay, well, if this movie is you see this like out, so in the film it's an outsider girl basically arriving to the sleepover of these very clearly like popular girls, like very different, and immediately I feel like we see like these two dynamics of girl characters, and you always think, okay, they're going to fight, it's not going to end well, you're going to think the movie is going to end bloody. If it's a horror movie, if it's a chick flick, they're going to bully her or give her a makeover and she's going to look the same, they just took her glasses off. And so for me, a big inspiration for making the story for it was something that is like building off of all of these tropes that we know, but then just kind of making it absolutely like, a roller coaster, hot pink fever dream ride, as it kind of goes into absurdity sort later in the film. So that was a big inspiration for me of just like, you always do see these like two different types of characters. And it's like, well, why can't, like, it's almost like I kind of wanted to try something that's like, it is a horror movie, but and it does end bloody, but it is not in the way that you may think. Because for me, I wanted to make it more like a sisterhood sort of uh it's like twisted and messed up, but it is like at the end of the day, they just wanted her to let loose is how I sort of imagine it a bit.
Cool. Well, it's a great first piece out of college, and the themes of it in terms of the storyline, you laid out a lot of the kind of the genre bending and, kind of chick flick meets horror film. And the theme and the storyline is really interesting because you have this uh, young woman who comes into the picture, and she's portrayed as very pure, and she is very pure. She's, speaks Tagalog from a, ancestral language, in the Philippines, and she's, sort of like this very authentic indigenous kind of a character, and she comes into this very Western world of makeup and frilly, Victoria's Secret garb and attire, and there's like this sleepover that is going to happen. And as a viewer, you don't know. I mean, the girls are certainly very scantily clad, so there seems to be some sort of sexual thing about to ensue, and they kind of pressure her into drinking. And then it like takes this turn when the character reaches this point where she, gets sick, and then there's this, and then all of a sudden we're in another world, and we're in this world of kind of mythology and world of ritual and world of sacrifice and world of, breaking through some modernity that is chaining us. Like we're chained by these kind of maybe stereotypes,
Yeah.
that the two women both portray, stereotypes of this, kind of ideal Western beauty and this, mythic purity, both stereotypes, and then this unchaining and this longing for an unchained or a wild experience. And so the character finds herself in this opportunity to have this wild experience, and she goes, she dives into it and takes it on. Um, and it does come into this sisterhood kind of context. Um, so with that kind of laid out as the narrative, the original inspiration from of the storyline and the themes that you're dealing with, how did they come out of your own life and your own life experience?
Yeah, I have a couple different there's a lot that I've drawn on from my own personal life for this movie, despite it being, quite like weird. But I do feel like for me, I think it is not even just for me, but I think like growing up, I was very like sheltered and shy. Like I definitely was like I could tell I didn't know what it even was until like getting older, where I'm realizing, okay, like there was actually quite a lot that I was restraining myself, or like, I would feel like, oh, I'm taking up too much space, or, I might just like, I think there's just definitely this like, and I feel like there's a societal also, kind of a footprint that's put on women as well too, for just sort of like, if you do too much, it's, there's just different sort of, I guess expectations that come with it. And so I always thought that like, I have always felt like the most like love and like crazy times like with, hanging out with like very close female friends like that have like I just feel like the whole how we see female friendship in media is so like I don't know, there's so many one-dimensional examples that like will train us to just think, okay, like there's no way that these people can be like they're obviously going to do something horrible to her. And so I like just playing with the idea of like, like there are people that like even if we are different, it's like we've definitely, like had some fun together or have like serious deep talks and, have genuinely gotten to like know people on like a deeper level where it has like empowered me as someone that was like, more shy growing up to be like, you know what, like, yeah, I can be more myself and be more this. And so I know that in the short it's sort of like that's sort of where I drew from, was just like this is someone that is shy and hasn't had like, maybe in like immigrant parents like I have as well too, and like, maybe you haven't had like just like a chance to like you kind of need like a night to be like a little bit of a hot mess, or be a night to get, to have like these sort of like you have to sort of go through life and like have all those experiences safely, of course, but like, there's a way that like if you restrain yourself from being your true self and not wanting to go and do these sort of experiences, like I wanted to capture this sort of social horror it feels like for an outsider to go to this party, and we in the audience, as the audience, will always be like, this is what's going to happen. But I think that like for her it really is just like, I felt like it the movie itself was sort of, because I made it as weird as this before, was like movie itself was sort of me going through her kind of like coming out of her shell sort of arc as well too, of like, now I watch the movie and I'm like, I think this could be 100 times weirder, as I'm writing like a feature version for it too. But when I first created it, I was very like, well, this is kind of weird, like what are people gonna think, like is this like what, like, this was it was very like from script to just like passion, just like, okay, we're doing this, like it kind of, all sort of formed together. And so it was just very like gut. And I'm someone that like I definitely overthink. So it has like helped me in the sense of like, okay, no, like actually like despite all of that, this does feel like the most me like work that I've made. And so really it is sort of that like coming out of your shell. Like I wanted to, and that's why I love genre too. It's like, how do you explore this theme of someone coming out of their shell, and all the egg and chicken puns that can come from that.
Yeah, definitely. And the metaphor, of coming out of the shell as a chick and being born again, and, being born again into this kind of context of the feminine, and the mysterious mystery of what that kind of ancient feminine is, and what there's certainly kind of this, there's an altar set up, and there's this association with whether, it could be called the Earth Mother or Gaia or whatever kind of mythology, you put onto it. There's some element of that ancestral sacred there. So the need, in terms of the meaning of the film and the message that you get out of it as a viewer, there's definitely that need for coming into something, ancestral, something rooted, something very inside yourself, and natural and
Yeah,
innate and
primal.
primal. Thank you. Yeah. And so that need, I think we can all like identify with, any race, color, creed, sexual orientation, or non-sectional binary, whatever. But we can kind of, I think, all relate to that primal sense of beingness, and the beingness that isn't maybe fully expressible in waking context of modern times and social contexts. So, how do you see now, after having made the film, having gone through it, being on the other side, that need? How do we meet that need?
Yeah. That sort of need for like breaking out, you mean?
Yeah, I think breaking out and of conventions and confines and stereotypes, and breaking in potentially to,
Yeah.
yeah, a sense of belonging and sisterhood and, union.
Yeah, I do feel like sort of with what I was saying, of like when I had first made the movie, I was very nervous about the reception, because I was just nervous about, like, I just hadn't made something that had as sharp of a left turn, like here's like where the rest of the movie is going. You thought you were watching something, now the rug has been pulled. And so it was very exciting creatively, but I think now, like, because it has been a few years since making the short, and it had its like festival rounds, and we were able to, probably a really big defining moment was we were at Nifty, which is this great festival in Seattle for filmmakers under the age 24. At the time I was. And so it was a great experience. We played in like this pack theater as like the part of the centerpiece category, and it was just truly like we were all like, me, and I was there with my producer, my DP, two of my cast, and it was just such a great experience because we were all like dressed up very like, what, if we're gonna do this, like, so we came like, very colorful, and there were people telling us like, oh, we knew which movie was yours as soon as we saw you guys walk
Sure.
up. And so it has really like, in a sense, it's like as I'm writing, a feature version of it. Like I feel like I finally had the time to like let the ideas marinate. And I think in 2020, when I first wrote the short, I just had like I want to create something shocking, and I have these visuals in mind and a cult. And I've always thought the idea of it's personally ridiculous to me, the evolutionary track of dinosaurs. I always thought that was kind of a fun Easter egg in the short of like dinosaurs, the mighty apex predator, have become the modern day chicken, which is kind of, really funny to me. And so I just thought that, okay, like maybe if there's what can be expanded upon of like this cult that like, we want to we have been through history or through through time have been now domesticated, and slaughtered for their bodies, robbed of their eggs. And so I thought, okay, there's a connection here with women, like being systematically like oppressed, as well as large of a concept that is, but to put it into kind of this like crazy sleepover movie. It really, like, since making the movie, I feel like breaking out like of your shell or just like being authentically yourself. I think that's something that resonates a lot with people today and like modern movie audiences, which is why movies are getting weirder, and like are getting, higher like there's just movies have always been weird, but like, it's more like, movies winning best awards at the Oscar, like Poor Things, for example, which is like a very odd movie, but that is like so like acclaimed like by the Academy. It's kind of interesting to see, or Everything Everywhere All at Once, especially like it's really interesting seeing how movies are changing. So I feel like being authentically yourself is like more important than ever for not only yourself, like how you make your work and how you feel about it, but just like, I think just in the creative process too of like, this is something weird. I may have not seen this before, or maybe I want to try something new. But I think like, why would we be doing movies if we're not going to try to do something, that like out of the box almost? Like it's very like this is such a there's so many. I feel like it is just so important to especially now, years after, like letting it again really all just like marinate, and understanding what the themes I was trying to say were. It really does feel like it for me went towards it being like, this is a personal story of like, any outsider that finds community, and feeling empowered to get a little crazy, and have a little, get a little loose, in the beautiful guise of, of cult horror movie. But really, like, it's more like a support group, they're all just hanging out. And honestly, ask any girl, this is literally what happens at a sleepover. So
Well, I think what I heard you say in terms of how to address the need, what can we take away from the story, and how can we incorporate its lessons and teachings into our life? And, being the authentic self is a way to connect with what is most primal, right?
mhm.
And that means being honest and truthful to yourself and with others, and that is a leap. That's not easy to take. And in this context, that leap or feels like stepping into something wild, but it doesn't have to be. It only feels like stepping something wild because it's unknown, it's
Yeah.
unfamiliar, but it could
Hmm.
be a very, natural step, um as well. And that's kind of how I take it and hear what you're saying. The last question, and you've talked about it already a little bit, is how you have personally been changed. And you've said, after making this movie, and you've said, in the process of doing this work, you've had to disclose yourself. You've had to reveal so much of yourself and the authentic parts of yourself that you've been afraid to reveal. Now that you've revealed those, how do you feel? Is there more to reveal? How can others, do the same thing that don't have the means of making a film at their disposal? How can we all be a little bit more, whether it's vulnerable or revealing or empowered?
Yeah, I honestly do think vulnerability is key. I think that like I primarily like to be like behind the camera, like writer, director, or producer, AD. But I think that I took an acting class last year just to, see what was up. And it definitely was a whole different experience being in front of the camera. But one of the most beautiful things that I really respect about actors is that like there's a grip that's holding a stand, or someone's hold like 2 feet away from you, and you have to be delivering like a heartfelt speech about some horrible thing that just happened, like it's and then oh, but then a plane just flew by, so stop, now do it
I
again.
know it's
And so
awful. It's murder.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, I respect actors so like I so much. It's like that is such a but that is such a in tune to your emotions like ability that you have to like unlock that to even do that. And I feel like with it was definitely uncomfortable doing that for me, because I had just not done it like in an acting sense really before. But I think with like writing, directing, it is very vulnerable in the sense of like whatever you choose to write, and like base your story around, like I do think that like tapping into what is a story that only you can tell. And it doesn't have to be anything like crazy elaborate. It could be like for me, like for chicks at least, I always like have been kind of like the chicken person, in a weird way to say, but like I've just always like just like I love chicken. I do. And so I've just always enjoyed it, and dinosaurs, and girly movies and horror. And so it's just like thinking, okay, like what if putting all of them in one movie? That could be kind of, a crazy combination. And so I really think that like realizing that like I guess once you sort of know like the ins and out of like basic story structure, or like what you want to, for yourself, like I feel like your voice is always being defined and being, always sort of like you're understanding more and more. But I feel like to only unlock that, you can do that only by truly being authentically yourself. Because if you write something that's like, okay, this is what I think people might enjoy, sure, I'm sure people may enjoy it. But I think that like if you write something with the like I think one of the greatest parts of writing is when you have those little, or just filmmaking, is when you have those little stupid moments of like, well, what if this just happens, and it's just like a crazy little like joke suggestion, but then it's kind of like, well, actually, no, like that could be awesome, or that's like actually the meaning of the movie there, like there's so much like you just have to be. I feel like since making the short a few years back, I've definitely like chilled out more, in the sense of just like, oh right, everyone's making everything up at the same time, like like there's not rules, there's not any sort of set like this is how things need to be done. I think just honestly like being patient and kind with yourself, and understanding that it's a process, and it's an evolution, and that like the only way you can unlock that is by having that like I'm just gonna do what I want, and hopefully someone else will enjoy this too. Maybe someone has the same sense of humor as me. Maybe someone also had a crazy fever dream, where they like heard the chicken dance and was like, that could be a cult scene, like some anything like that. You never know how you'll connect with people, but I feel like just again, I do think that like authentically being yourself, it's like that to me is what has resonated in life, and also is what resonated for me as I'm writing a feature version of the script, of elaborating like more on that, like just truly like the key is just why hold yourself back, because your fear of being weird, or your fear of being too out there, like it's holding you back. Like you're just not going to you just you can't be doing anything with that. So I think it is honestly like, yeah, not even just like a filmmaking philosophy. I just truly think like the sooner that you are just accept like, okay, maybe some things I do are cringy, but whatever, that's me, like that's everyone is cringe in different ways. So it's like truly just like letting go of that, that just like restraint you have on yourself. But I do think that takes time to, every like movies like you make, or other experiences you have in life, like it definitely takes time to like it's one thing to say that, but then to actually be like, yeah, like I'm not caring what people think. That's definitely there's a disconnect, but it's just that's the first step.
Sure. That's beautiful. Thank you, Gene Hernandez, filmmaker, writer, director of Chicks. It was a pleasure to speak with you today, and I look forward to doing it again.
Yeah, it was great chatting. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks. Thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it.